Well, hi there, and welcome along to Jump to It, brought to you by irishracing.com. We're going to be talking all things Cheltenham on this week's show. Not the festival, no. The New Year's Day extravaganza, 7 races to get stuck into. Of course, I'll be in the company of bettingexpert.com's Stephen Harris. Stephen, how are you? You well?
Yeah, just about sobering up after Christmas Ed. I have had a bit of flu in the last week, but I've got off my deathbed. We've got a great card at Cheltenham to get cracking through. We were saying, weren't we, off air, two things. There's a million runners. I mean, you do wonder, we obviously had that firm ground for a couple of months and then we had the big freeze, but it does seem that suddenly all these trainers have woken up and they think, we've got to get a run into our horses, got to get them going, got to get them started. And the second thing to say was that you live obviously 25 yards away from the open ditch at Cheltenham, and it's almost good ground, which those of us who live further down south, I mean, it is absolutely pouring here this morning. I mean, down the road from Sandown, that's going to be pretty testing next weekend for the Tolworth, but I'm amazed it's goodish ground at Cheltenham at the moment.
Yeah, I know. I'm a little bit sceptical as well, Stephen, to be honest with you, going into proper Michael Fish mode. I mean, it has been dry here for pretty much yesterday and most of the day before. But yeah, we did have shed loads of rain before that. It's been raining all morning. And I gather we are recording this on Friday morning. Depending on which weather forecast you look at, there's up to 15, even 16 millimetres of rain forecast from the Friday through to the Sunday. So, yeah, the chance are obviously if it gets the upper end of that, you'd be looking at more soft in the ground than anything else. But as you say, if the racing were to start now, the ground would officially be good on the new course, which, as you say, I find absolutely baffling. But as you say, we respect the views coming out of them, the clerk of the course and the officials. Yeah. Look, jokes aside, I think we're going to work on the assumption we do get this heavy band of rain, in which case there's going to be enough juice in the ground, I think, for to keep a lot of horses happy, and hopefully the field sizes stack up. I suppose, Stephen, that's the main thing we're looking for, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really good racing. I mean, there's some, in the handicaps, you've got 4 places. There's fantastic betting opportunities. It just does look very competitive. I mean, it's not easy to find winners. There's some very highly regarded horses running. It's a really good card. I mean, I know you're going, Ed. It's going to be absolute capacity there, isn't it, on Sunday?
Yeah, it will be absolutely rammed. Perfect time to introduce the 3-year-old to Cheltenham, basically. Yeah, picked a good day to do it, I think. But no. Anyway, before we get on to the card itself, just very briefly, excuse me, looking back at the races over the festive period. Now, we're doing a special review show, which hopefully Emma Nagle will be joining us for next week here on irishracing.com. So we don't want to give away too much, but if I was just going to ask you for one highlight or one disappointment or anything that really stood out for you over the last week or so, Stephen, is there anything really springing to mind?
Well, I think Brave Man's Game was a pretty remarkable performance in the King George. I mein, it was a funny old race, wasn't it? We weren't mad on the horse who ended up favourite, Long Press, and he did jump left. He ran really well, and I thought Brave Man's Game did well to win because he was parked on the wrong side of Long Press for the whole of that race. I mean, if you backed him, you'd be shouting at the television for Cobden to get in. But apparently, I read afterwards that Nichols thinks he needs to see daylight and doesn't want crowding, which is why Cobden kept him in the car park. I mean, it was an extraordinary staying performance. I mean, I suppose the flip side is the couple of horses I was with, Hitman never went a yard. He was beat after 4 fences, something surely a miss there. He was very weak.
Burst of blood vessel was the official line,
He was very weak in the market and he ran very badly. And Envoy Alan, who was very strong in the market, well, I mean, he was given a very curious ride, wasn't he? He was never within 15 lengths of the leaders and never got involved. He did make a bad blunder at the 6th, I think, but he was never really going either. So it was a bit of a disappointing race financially.
Yeah, indeed. Nonetheless, I suppose going further forward, Brave Man's Game, Cheltenham 3.25 miles. He's going straight to the Gold Cup, according to Paul Nichols. Be interesting. They could park him out wide around there. He's going to have to run about 3 miles, 5 furlongs, isn't he? So anyway,
I do understand that people are keen on Long Press much more so than Brave Man's Game because he did jump so markedly left, and he's done it at Cheltenham before. It'll be fine round Cheltenham.
So in a word, Stephen, Brave Man's Game versus Long Press in 10 weeks' time. Who are you taking?
Well, I think one of them will finish 7th and one of them will finish 9th. And I suspect Long Press Long Press will probably finish 7th, and the Brave Man's Game will finish 9th. I would be worried about the Gold Cup for Brave Man's Game.
Right,
I
okay.
didn't like the fact that he thought he doesn't want to see any. That's going to be a rough race, the Gold Cup. It always is. It is a brutal race. I suspect we might get a big field this year as well, because obviously Galloping the Champs could be a class or two above them all, but there's going to be. Nobody's not going to not want to run in the Gold Cup, Ed, are they? If you see what I mean. I don't think there's a horse to be terrified of what we've seen so far. So you could easily get sort of 14, 15 runners in the Gold Cup. It won't be easy to. You can't win parked out wide at Cheltenham looking for daylight the whole time. It's just not how the races are won at that track. So I'd be sceptical. I suspect the form of that King George won't have much bearing on the Gold Cup come March.
Right, fascinating. We will cover that and more on next week's review show. But great to hear the insight of Stephen Harris, their review in regards to the Cheltenham Festival. But to more immediate affairs, is Cheltenham's New Year's Day meeting we are going to be concentrating on. So let's look ahead to our races of the week. Well, the action at Prestbury Park gets underway at 12:10 on New Year's Day, 7-race card. We are kicking off with the Ballymore Maiden Hurdle, over 2 miles, 4 furlongs and 56 yards for those of you of the pedantic nature. A cracking field, as you said, Stephen, fingers crossed. All these fields hold up, because this is brilliant stuff. We've got 14 due to go to post for this. See, a lot of eyes naturally are on Firestep. Who's been well touted, hasn't he, during the Nicky Henderson yard. Hasn't been seen since winning that bumper. It'll be his first time over hurdles. He's probably going to be quite warm order, I'm guessing, but there are others in here with good chances. We've all been caught, Stephen, as a horse I've flagged up in the past. The reins really did get in the ground. I think he could run a big race here. Of course, he was third to Hermes Allen, who will be running in the Challow Hurdle, of course, just after this show goes out. So lots of different angles of intrigue here. I'm with we've all been caught if the rain arrives. If not, it's no bet from me. What about yourself, Stephen?
Well, I mean, we've all been caught, Ed. You've correctly said it. He was one of the biggest eye catchers the whole season, wasn't he?
The biggest horse, the biggest horse. Sorry, Steve. Biggest horse physically, apparently, Nigel Twiston-Davies has ever trained. I mean, it's a useless fact, but he's an absolute monster. He dwarfs everything in the paddock. About tenfold.
He was green and absolutely clueless, wasn't he? First time out, he jumped slowly. He was out the back, but he flew up the hill. I mean, he charged him. He watched it sort of again, and he was just a learning process on the job. The form is probably quite strong. Hermes Allen is highly regarded and was very impressive in making all the running. We'll see how good it is later on the card. But, yeah, I mean, he's entitled to improve. I would think that he doesn't really want good ground, because you'd think he'd be outpaced again. So, as you say, the more rain, the better. The top one is the talking horse, Firestep. I think Henderson holds him. He'd probably be in their top 3 of novice hurdlers. But 3 points about Firestep. As you say, he's obviously fragile. There was about a 5-month gap between his 2 bumpers, and we haven't seen him for a very long time. He's had a wind operation. He does. The thing I actually hate, as a punter, when they've had the wind up, but then they put the tie on as well for the first time, which they have done. That does ring alarm bells to me, because it would suggest that maybe the wind up hasn't worked. Now, I'm only guessing, but there will be a reason. It wouldn't be typical Henderson modus operandi to put a tongue tie on first time. And he is a 7-year-old going hurdling for the first time in quite a big field at Cheltenham against rivals who've had a run or two. And he's got Nico de Boinville on him. So, I mean, if you're a bookmaker, there are quite a few flashing question marks at the back of your mind about whether you want to be with him at a short price. I mean, they've got a million horses to measure him against. He's very useful. He's only run on good to soft in both those bumpers, and he was green on each occasion. So if it got really heavy, that would be a question mark. But as with all of Henderson's, he's bound to be beautifully prepared. He's a very interesting runner. I do think this is a no-bet race. There's 4 or 5 other very interesting horses. I mean, risking the ground is probably going to be a handicap plot at some point for the Skeltons. I doubt that'll be today. Future investment, Alan King. What do we think about Alan King's stable form? I mean, he's not exactly banging in winners left, right and centre, is he? I know Edwardstone getting rid of his jockey's nothing to do with it. He's had a few. There's a horse at behind Constitutional, So Royale. I mean, he got beaten 4 hurdles. It's probably the worst
Mm.
race he's ever run in his life. So it was crossing my mind about Alan King's horses that maybe they're not 100%. But Future Investment ran really well the other day in a strong race, so he'd be a runner as well. But I suspect the market will guide with horses like Firestep.
Yeah, bit of a watch and brief for now, I think it's fair to say. Keep your eyes on the weather because that could have huge bearing. As you said, if we do get that 15 millimetres of rain, the complexion of any race changes, but especially this one, as you say, well, I think a few trainers perhaps looking for some better ground in here. And in the regards to we've all been caught, my selection, a case of the more the rain, the merrier. On to the 12:45, the AIS handicap chase. Extended 3 miles and 2 furlongs, more or less the Cheltenham Gold Cup trip here, isn't it? We've got 13 due to go to post. Some lovable old favourites. I'll say that though, Stephen. I start looking through the ages of some of these horses. I thought they're about 15, but they're not. They seem to have been around forever. But some horses in here, likes of Easy Land, Spirit of the Games, Rapper as well, Secret Reprieve, of course. This looks ultra competitive, as you would expect. I haven't got any live prices at the time of recording, but I mean, how do you kind of sum this one up?
Well, it looks wide open betting. I mean, I haven't recovered yet, Ed, from Spirit of the Games getting beat at the last meeting here. He got the absolute perfect ride from Harry Skelton. He was smuggled round up the inside. He actually jumped really well for him, and he got there on the bridle, and as usual, jacked it in the last 100 yards. I did back him each way, but it was still. I did think he'd actually managed to win one. He's had a million chances. He'll probably be in the frame again. But I thought Itchy Feet was pretty interesting. I mean, this is the greatest cliff horse of all time. I know you've followed him off more cliffs than anyone, and I'm now joining you. I have to say, he does stand out a bit into a handicap here. Now, I know he's not getting any younger. He's nudging 10. But I thought he ran okay at Haydock. Now, obviously, that form with Hitman's had a bit of a knock, but maybe we can forget that. The horse who finished second, Earn River, come out and run a blinder at Doncaster in the week. So I think the form's okay. And Itchy Feet will have needed that run, and he wasn't disgraced. Now, he lost his way last spring, pulled up a couple of times, but he'd been running really well. I mean, he's just one of those horses. He makes one mistake, doesn't he? He's either come in there 3 out with a really strong-looking run and then makes a mistake, and he looks unlucky, and you think, well, he's got to be able to win off this kind of mark. And the same thing happens again the following week. He is quite well treated now after those blips last spring. He's only run at Cheltenham 3 times in his whole life, which is quite unbelievable. Again, as you say, he's one of those horses you think he's about 18 years old. He unseated in the Marsh Chase when very well backed. He ran 2 absolute screamers over hurdles in the past. I mean, you go back to 2019. Third in the Supreme. So is that relevant? Well, I think it is. If they go round Cheltenham on the undulations, it's a good sign. It doesn't. I'm surprised Ollie Murphy hasn't run him in more of these sort of Saturday handicaps, to be honest with you. But maybe he was rated too high, and he has still got loads of weight to lump. But he's just come down to a rating where he can run in these races. I think, and again, he's not a horse maybe to make so many excuses for, but a strongly run big field handicap where he can get buried out the back, fiddle his way round, hopefully. Things could get set up for him. I mean, you've seen a million races at Cheltenham, haven't you?
Yeah.
The number of times the complexion changes late in these handicaps, they get racing far too far out. And Itchy Feet's just the sort of horse I could see Sean Bowen, who's riding really well, picking up the pieces after the last.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you here. As I said, I followed him off more cliffs than Dover, this horse. However, he's dropped, as you say, he's dropped to 145. It's a career low handicap chase mark, isn't it? So if he's ever going to race, it's going to be here. He's got good form at Cheltenham. And as you say, if you look back to some of his form, I mean, as recently as November 2021, so you're talking, 13 months ago, he was beaten 3 lengths by Brave Man's Game, giving him £4. I mean, that's pretty smart form in hindsight. I mean, second to All Mankind in an old roan chase as well. Again, that's very, very good form. He had Midnight Shadow behind him and went on to win the Paddy Power Gold Cup. So, as you say, he does look dangerously well treated for a former Grade 1 winner. There is always that worry that the fire no longer burns, but worth taking the chance, I think.
I think he's one of those. He's never been a graded horse, but he's running a lot of graded races, and he's often run really well in them. Maybe 3, 4, 5 runner races aren't what he wants. Maybe he does want a big field handicap. The other one to mention, who's interesting, is Captain Nord. who's been slightly disappointing this season, but he's another one whose mark's starting to come down a bit. He was never really going last time out, but he's one to keep an eye on if the cash arrives, perhaps. Although Christian Williams, a brilliant trainer. At the time of recording, he has had 7 winners this season, and his strike rate's under 5%. So, he's not having quite the brilliant time of things he has had over the last few years.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. It should be ultra competitive, as you say, but Itchy Feet definitely one. Keeping your notebooks, going up to 3.25 miles, the Gold Cup trip for the first time in a handicap off 145. I'm tending to side with Stephen here. I think I wouldn't be shocked if he ran a big race. On to the 120. This is the Paddy Power and obviously Chase. This is the Dipper, as we like to know it and call it. Grade 2 action here, 6 declared for this assignment, Stephen. Now we've got Montmirail, best price 11-8, time of recording. Thunder Rock 5-2, Beauport 13-2. The Real Whack at 11s, Harper's Brook for Ben Pooling at 12s, Mortlack at 50s. Montmirail 11-8. You with him or against him?
I think he's a short enough price. I mean, he jumped really well first time out over fences, obviously bumped into John Bon. You can't say that the remote third has done that much for the form, which is slightly disappointing. Obviously, the winner, John Bon, looks top class, heading for the Arkle. West Cork was third.
Yeah.
He was disappointing in a handicap we were on, weren't we, over Christmas?
Pulled up, never won a yard.
Yeah, he was disappointing. So I suppose that's a slight negative. I think this is quite a warm race. I was going to say that I think the bottom one, Thunder Rock, who's been very progressive for Ollie Murphy against lesser horses. I don't think he wants testing ground. I remember him getting beaten and flipping long 11 lengths. He got beat. I think it was at Newton Abbot in heavy ground, and I don't think it suited him. So that'd be something to bear in mind. His form's all been on good or good to soft this season so far. So he's quite a fast horse. Montmirail jumped superbly. Nothing to dislike about him. I just think 11-8 is a tight enough price. I think the top two, the top one, Beauport, is very interesting. He wouldn't mind any rain. He's reliable. He's run twice over fences. He finished second behind Ballygriffin Cottage at Haydock, who's very smart. I don't think that was it might have looked a disappointing run because he was an odds-on favourite.
He bumped into one there, I think.
Definitely, yeah. And he goes really well on testing ground. He's got loads of soft ground form and heavy ground. And the other one, Harper's Brook, I know you're keen on, so I'll let you talk about him. But he ran at Carlisle in November, at the end of October, beg your pardon, and he bumped into Iron Bridge. And if you stop that race 3 out, he had them absolutely stone cold. He must have been 1.1 or less in running. And Iron Bridge came and picked him off. And Harper's Brook has since gone round Bangor, absolutely hard held. So he's an interesting runner as well. It's a really good race.
Yeah, indeed. I was with Harper's Brook. I'm hoping the rain arrives with Harper's Brook. I mean, he does act on good, but I mean, he was soft ground up at Carlisle when he was beaten by Iron Bridge, who's probably a pretty useful sort, and he handled the ground fine there. And it was absolute hock deep, wasn't it? It was bottomless at Bangor on D, and he got the job done in good style there. I think soft ground would probably inconvenience others more than it would him in that sense. And so, yes, even though on figures, he does have a fair bit to find, doesn't he? He has a stone to find with Montmirail. He's 12-1, Montmirail 11-8. I'm not sure there's as much between them as the market would lead you to believe if the rain does arrive. That would be the kind of angle. I think, soft ground can be a bit of a leveler. And if this does turn into a soft ground affair, I think Harper's Brook, I do take your point, Stephen. I think he could be a little bit of a tricky customer. He has idled on both occasions on his starts over fences. However, he's such a strong traveller. I think his class will get him into this race. I think he's going to need to be played late by Luca Morgan. But I say on soft ground, I think he could come with a bit of a stalking ride and hopefully the race falls apart and he can pick them off up the hill. Anyway, that's the logic. I thought he's a bit of value at 12-1 in that 6-runner affair. Right, on to the 155. This is the New Year's Day handicap, sponsored by Paddy Power. This is mesmerising, Stephen. 17 declared for this. I couldn't believe it. You sent me a WhatsApp earlier. I was waiting for the usual 6 to be declared and trainers scratching around. This is a phenomenal lineup of horses here we've got, haven't we? I mean, I won't go through the whole market, but we've got Midnight River 6-1, Il Rodito 13-2, Brave Siaska 8, Stolen Silver the same price, Happy Go Lucky, Shake 'em Up Harry 11s. We're then going 14s, Fantastic Lady, Warlord, 16s, Bar. I mean, almost where do you start? I suppose you've got to start Midnight River. Your 6-1 market leader. The right favourite for you, the right price, and if not, what's kind of floating your boat further down the list?
Well, Midnight River was really impressive first time out, and then ran very well here in the Paddy Power Gold Cup. Finished third behind GA Law. Patient Ride, which is always good in these big field races around Cheltenham. Slight ground concern for me. I'm not convinced he wants really soft ground if the rain does arrive. He's smooth travelling, reliable, progressive, improving. Dan Skelton had 4 winners the other day. They've been quite. I mean, I think you want at least 10-1 before you have a bet in this race. Yeah. There's 17 runners. So you're going to get 4 places for looking around. I've got 2 on my shortlist. I'll do them in reverse order. Yep. Coconut Splash, who's a horse, has run 7 times over fences and somehow still hasn't won. I backed him at Wetherby first time out the other day. I thought he ran very well. He did what Coconut Splash always does. He travelled round like one who was about 2 stone ahead of his mark. And when he was asked to quicken, he just stayed on at the same pace. Now, that might not be a bad thing in this race because they're going to go a right gallop. And he'll just be settled out the back. He'll cruise around. The form of that race is red hot. I mean, the winner into Overdrive has come out and won the Roland Merrick over Christmas. The runner-up, Dublin 4. I had a few quid on the other day. He ran really well. He finished third. He was left with quite a lot to do. And Coconut Splash finished third on the heels of the pair of them. So 16-1 Coconut Splash. I'm definitely going to have him winning. I'll back him each way. Adam Wedge is brilliant in these handicaps. And the one we both like. So I will let you do most of the talking about him. But Warlord, he's another one of these horses. He's not quite a graded horse, is he? He's a really, really top-class handicap who's found life quite hard recently because he's off such a high mark. But he ran in the Howden Gold Cup on return. And I don't think things panned out ideally for him. He made a few mistakes and he got tired. I think he probably needed the run. Greener team, of course, was very impressive there. He's now back at Cheltenham, where he ran an absolute screamer in the Arkle last year. I think he wants 2 mile 4 now. As you're about to say, he desperately wants rain. I remember him winning at Lingfield in ground that was as bad as it gets, and he absolutely sluiced round Lingfield in heavy ground. So I think he's an interesting one. I think he's at least 14. You might get 16, 20-1 for looking, I expect.
Yeah, indeed. I'm with the Warlord, as you say. That Holden Gold Cup run, 2 miles, 1 furlong on good ground behind, essentially, a previous Tingle Creek winner. He was taken off his feet first time out for the season. Up to 2.5 miles, much more his bag. If you look back at that Arkle run, as you say, very, very good form with Blue Lord and Edwardstone ahead of him. That looks phenomenal, considering he's in a handicap here of 148. I think he's the best handicapped horse in this field, bar none. To be honest with you, I would just like to see the heavens open. As I say, he has got winning form on good to soft ground, but I think it's a case where if the rain really did arrive, we get the upper end of that rain forecast, it would inconvenience a whole lot others more than it would him, and we know he will go through soft ground, no problem at all. So Warlord. Up to 2.5 in a handicap off 148. Rain, please. I think he's a huge price. Anything double figures is massive about him. Say the form of that Arkle looks red hot. Edwardstone's won a Tingle Creek. You've got Blue Lords come out and Frank the form at the top level over the Christmas period. And what was he? He was 3 lengths behind Blue Lord. Here he is in the handicap off 148. If the handicapping mathematics of anything, he should be about an even money shot, shouldn't he? Really, we shall see. But Warlord, very keen on. Just come on the reins. About the only time I ever do say that, but would like to see some rain in that one. That should be a spellbinding contest. On to the 230, the Real Kill Hurdle. Grade 2 action here. At Cheltenham, over 2 miles, 4 furlongs, a trappy kind of betting heat, I suppose, in many ways, isn't it? This one, Stephen. The bookmakers finding it hard to split a couple of these. Marie's Rock your 3-1 market leader. I like to move it. Of course, that's a very good record at Cheltenham. Half a point bigger. It's 7-2. Nappers Hill, 5-1. Arriving here on a 5-timer for the Paul Nicholls team. First Street, the same price. Then you're into Dashel Drasher and Brewing Up a Storm 10s. Botox has 11s. Tritonic 28. And a bit of 40-1 floating around for Langer Dan. Marie's Rock, I like to move it. You with any of the big two in inverted commas, or are you looking elsewhere, Stephen?
I think this is an interesting race. I mean, these are different form lines of horses, aren't they? The bottom one, Marie's Rock, a mare, thrived last season. She won the mares at the festival and she went over to Punchestown and worked. I think the ground is a massive concern for Mary's Rock. She does not want testing ground. All of her best form has come on good. She's run a couple of stinkers when there's been testing ground. Obviously, if it stays as it is, we might be talking nonsense. But looking at the weather forecast, you know, I wouldn't be rushing to be with her first run of the season. Also, have things gone to plan for her not to have reappeared before now? Maybe she's being aimed at the festivals again, but it would be a worry. And these are different type of horses to the ones she was running against last season. Not for me. I'm surprised she's favourite. I suspect she might not be come the off, and she could be one of those horses Henderson pulls out. I wouldn't be at all surprised. And Dashel Drasher, an absolute mudlark, but he's very slow. I'd be surprised if he was good enough. He'll be grinding away. He would need it very heavy to lay up with these. He wants to lead. So does I like to move it. He's a Cheltenham specialist. Got a very good ride here when making a winning return, but they did miss out 90% of the hurdles that day. It was a absolute farce of a race, And he, I'm not saying he nicked it because he didn't. He's a very good horse, but he got a very good ride. He was seen to absolute maximum effect. Whether that'll work again round here with competition for the lead. I do like Nappers Hill. I mean, he's going to be a lovely 3-mile chaser in time. He's my selection. He flew round Wincanton. The runner-up did nothing for the form So Royale we've already touched on, but he was very impressive there. His handicap win at Chepstow has worked out really well. I think he beat a horse called Baddesley Lord Baddesley of Chris Gordon, who's come out and won since, and others in behind have come out and franked that form, Prashima among others. So he's a great big chasing sort. He doesn't have to lead. He'll sit second or third. He stays really well. I don't think this trip will be any issue at all. He's going to get further in time. And if it rains, that'll suit him as well. So 5-1. I wouldn't be surprised if he started favourite on the day.
Yeah, indeed. This is tricky stuff to kind of weigh up, isn't it? I'm just looking through it. That 7 horses separated by £3 on BHA ratings. Yeah, kind of tells you all you need to know in a way. Very little to separate them from what we've seen so far. Could be incredibly competitive. This, you say, we've got 5 last time out winners in here as well. Interesting, the line on Murray's Rock I've just got from Dickie Henderson saying they're going to decide where to go with her on the back of this weather to attack the mare's route at the Cheltenham Festival, or possibly will she go up to 3 miles and think about something like the Stayers Hurdle on the back of it as well. On the subject of the Stayers Hurdle, that is equine roulette at the moment. It's 7-1 the field about the Stayers Hurdle. They're betting like it's the Peter Marsh chase for the Stayers Hurdle 10 weeks out. We'll come on to that next week's show. But interesting as you say what the ground does. Would be a negative for Marie's Rock, according to Stephen Harris, if the rains do arrive. But Nappers Hill, 5-1 on a 5-timer. That's the value play with Harry Cobden in the saddle. On to the 305. And a Paddy Power handicap hurdle. Essentially, it's 3 miles, isn't it? I think it's 7 yards shy of 3 miles here. 11 declared for this assignment. Again, another one, some interesting, for want of a better phrase, exposed types in here, but some lovable old sorts in the lineup. But we've got Jet of Magic leading the market at 9-2. We've more or less got 5-1 co-favourites to 3 here as well, with a Buffalo Soldier and Call Me Lord. 13-2 Wild About Oscar and Dolphin Square. 9s Thomas Darby, Peking Rose 10s, and then we're going 11s the remainder of the field. Jet of Magic, Buffalo Soldier, Call Me Lord. As I said, we've more or less got 5-1 co-favourites to 3 here. I mean, who do you think should be favourite? Who do you not like, etc., etc.?
Well, I think it is a very competitive race. One thing to say is that Peking Rose is declared at Newbury on Saturday, so I'm not sure what the plan is there. Yeah, whether they'll at the moment it's still in at Newbury, so perhaps probably going to go there. I mean, he would be a big runner if he turned up. He made a bad mistake when disappointing last time out. Jet of Magic, 3 from 8 over hurdles, finished second at Taunton last time out behind I Spy a Diva. I would be slightly surprised if that form was good enough and much more testing ground. A slight concern, though, did win on soft last season. I wasn't that keen on that one at the prices. I think it's around 5-1, something like that. The one I like here, Ed, and I have a funny feeling we're going to agree again.
It's ridiculous what is going on.
It's like a disease with these horses. But the top one, Thomas Darby, I mean, he ran an absolute screamer at Wetherby at the end of October when finishing second behind Prashima. He didn't jump particularly fluently, which is another trait of his, but he stuck on quite strongly in the closing phase. He got beaten 10 lengths, but he ran perfectly well. He was well in front of 3 under through 5 and Sporting John and Oscar Elite. It was a really good run in the scheme of things. And then last time out at Newbury, behind Champ and Paisley Park, he was well beaten. I think he was 53 lengths away in third, but that's probably neither here nor there now. He's back into a handicap. Now, he has got a big weight. He's got 12 stone to lump and he's 10 years old, but I think he's got a good makeup here. He's a thorough stayer. He handles soft ground particularly well. He's got a good record in these kind of races. He is now 10, but I thought he might be quite a big price, you know.
Yeah, he's touched a double-figure price, as you say. On paper, this is the most realistic race he's had a chance of winning in recent times. You know, chasing those Grade 1 stayers, the likes of Champ Around and Cider Burley, etc. It's not been suiting him. You say in the handicap company off 152, wouldn't be a shock. Runner-up in a Supreme Novices once upon a time. You know who's third in that race, do you, Stephen?
No, go on.
Itchy Feet. So it all ties in. It all ties in. The 2019 form all ties in here in 2023, doesn't it? So, but yeah, Thomas Darby off top weight. I'm inclined to agree with you again here. Again, he's been a horse who didn't quite perhaps kick on as we thought at one point, but he's run some wonderful races, been a great servant for the yard. And as you say, there's a world of difference between trying to hit the crossbar and those big Grade 1, Grade 2s. Now he's got a lump and load of weight around, but in a much lesser race here in handicap company. And we know he's a strong stayer. He's won at Cheltenham and he does handle soft. So another one I wouldn't mind seeing the heavens absolutely lash it down. So on to the finale, the concluding race on the card at Presby Park. The 340 it's the junior bumper race, isn't it? It's the bumper over 1 mile and 6 furlongs, or the New Year's Day Ledger, as the locals call it around here. Anything in this, Stephen, in the type of race I normally pay no attention to? I'll try and beat the car park rush, but watch it later.
Brilliant race to watch. All these Cheltenham bumpers. The only thing I ever do in Cheltenham bumpers is try and make a bookhead, usually at the festival, because I fancy being a bookmaker in the races. The Cheltenham bumper course is a 90-degree turn into the straight. It's like Dodgems. They're all inexperienced horses. A lot of the races are a complete mess. I mean, you'll never see more unlucky losers. If you watch the Champion bumper 100 times, you spot a million horses who are unlucky. It's that sort of course. I think it's made for bookmakers. That being said, there's loads of interesting runners from the top yard scene, none more so than Meatloaf, who I'd like to say he came like a bat out of hell to win at Wincanton, but we didn't actually see that race. It was run in fog. And if you're a bookmaker, I mean, I used to be a bookmaker at the Dogs, and whenever they used to run the Dogs in fog, you couldn't see a thing, but you knew the favourite would come out off the last bend 5 lengths clear and you'd have done your money. And that's what happened at Wincanton. They emerged out the fog. Meatloaf was a well-backed 5-4 favourite in a big field at Wincanton, and he came out the fog powering clear, looking a really smart horse for the 100 yards we saw of him. Nichols could have run 10 in this race. He's chosen to run him here. I should think he's a very smart prospect, but it's a really good race to watch and watch again.
Yeah, there'll not be a dry eye in the house, will there, if Meatloaf can win the 340?
Harry Cobden will be looking round in his rearview mirror, won't he, for danger? So, any more?
We're doing well there. We'll do a separate show on 80s and 90s rock music on another occasion. But yeah, absolutely, and very much for the informative nature. Going further forward, I think it's fair to say. Before we get on and I now you to the tips of the week, we are going to have a very brief chat at Tremor. The 215 is the Grade 3 Savills New Year's Day Chase, or the album photo benefit, as it was in years gone by. Here we've got an intriguing encounter, 5 due to go to post. Statler horse number 1 on your cards. But the most credible rival here looks like the previous Gold Cup winner, Manila Indo, of course, who's back for more. I'm interested to see how they bet here, Stephen. I mean, I didn't quite know what to make of this because the way the kind of the weight penalty structure of this race kind of weighs out. Well, if you believe Manila Indo could still run to a mark of 168, I mean, he's going to be a massive price here because he's officially £10 better than Statler, and he gets £8 from him in this assignment. So he looks well in that sense. But it's again, he's 10 years old. Is he on the? Is he in regressive mode? Statler clearly thriving, coming up through the ranks. It is where they kind of they meet, I suppose, in many respects. And then we've got Albara, Ryan Marsh, and Kilios Emery in there as well. How do you sum this one up, Stephen? And Statler, we mentioned if you take Galopin de Champs out of the Cheltenham Gold Cup picture, we're crying out for perhaps something else in Ireland to really put the foot down. You possibly conflated did that over the Christmas period. We'll discuss that with you and Emma next week. But Statler, could this be the lurker in the Gold Cup market for you?
He could be. I mean, it wouldn't be the most obvious route to a Gold Cup, would it? A National Hunt Chase over 3 miles 6 last season, but he's 3 from 3 over fences. He hasn't really come off the bridle. He was a very easy winner of the National Hunt Chase. He's only 8. He's only run 3 times over fences, 11 times in his whole life. So he could be improving. I mean, the terms of this race, he's got an awful lot of work to do. As you've said, he's got on official ratings £10 to find if they're off levels. So the fact he has to give weight away seems quite strange. I mean, there are negatives from Manila Indo. Obviously, he's a very high-class horse when he cuts out the mistakes. He has pulled up on a couple of occasions in the last 18 months. In the Gold Cup itself, when he ran so well to finish behind A Plus Tard, he was legless in the last 100 yards. He jumped the last level with A Plus Tard and got absolutely lapped up the hill. I watched it back this morning, funnily enough, just because I wanted to see the race. And I wonder if he went amiss there because he then went to Ireland for his final run and he was pulled up a long way out. I mean, it was 1 run too many. I mean, Henry de Bromhead, he's having winners. He's also having a few horses run badly. I mean, Envoy Alain was a bitter disappointment in the King George. And this one returns after, he's been off for 8 months or so. We haven't seen him out for a long time. This will be a market race. If de Bromhead's got Manila Indo back to anywhere near his best, he's going to be a very short-priced, popular favourite. But if Statler is 100% fit and trained for today, perhaps he'll improve past him. It looks 2 runners. I don't think you get any medals playing in these small field Irish graded races because the market will know more than you. I mean, Manila Indo could be 5-2 on. He could be 7-4 against. We don't know. We haven't seen him for a long time, and the yard's hardly flying.
Yeah, interesting points you raised there, Stephen. And with Manila Indo, as you say, he looks lobbed in the penalty structure of this assignment, but he's yet to win a race since he won the Cheltenham Gold Cup. You just wonder if that race took it really out of him. Winless last season, as you say, stopped to a walk up the running in the Cheltenham Festival for all that he did finish second, and then a lackluster performance when last seen. As for Statler, fascinated to see how he gets on. Statler currently 16-1 to win the Cheltenham Gold Cup. So I suppose if you're taking a view, you think Manila Indo is a busted flush and Statler's going to win this 15 lengths hard held. Well, the 16-1 won't be around for much longer after they cross the winning line, will it? So, look, all in all, again, a race which will be gleaning lots of clues and information for going further forward. Right, that pretty much wraps up our Races of the Week preview. As I said, colours to the mast. It's now time for our Tips of the Week. Right, Stephen, here we go then. Cheltenham New Year's Day meeting. Can we have your nap, your value bet, and your long shot, please?
Yeah, I think we've been bugging each other's phones a bit this weekend. I mean, the listeners will be pressing the lay button. We're both in agreement. My nap actually in the 12.45 should be a double figure price. Itchy Feet. I thought he ran okay at Haydock behind Hitman. Obviously, Hitman burst a blood vessel in the King George, but the runner-up come out and run well the other day. Erne River at Doncaster. Yeah. If Itchy Feet can ever cut out the mistakes, he's got a brilliant make-up here. Lots of rain, please. Testing ground, a clean round of jumping. He can pick them up late at a double-figure price. My value angle selection, we definitely agree on this. Warlord in the 155, probably each way. 4 places or more for looking. I think he needed a run at Exeter. He ran really well in the Arkle last year. He needs 2 mile 4 now. We know he loves heavy ground, which will be against all the others. If the forecast is right, it's going to be very testing there. And I think Warlord, with a better round of jumping, he has to go well each way, loads of appeal. Brendan Powell has been riding brilliantly all winter. Is a very good booking for Warlord. And finally, the long shot, we've already touched on this one, 305, Thomas Darby, 10-year-old veteran, but he's a graded horse in a handicap who stays really well. As you say, he's got bits and pieces of Cheltenham form in the past that would make him a good thing here. If he can get round cleanly, have a clean run through, he'll be staying on strongly up the hill. I think he should be 100% fit now after a couple of sighters this winter.
Yep, Stephen and myself praying for the rains to arrive as blue skies and sunshine get me sunburnt sitting here in my living room in Cheltenham. Yep, so fingers crossed that the rains do arrive. You say we're looking for the mudlarks for our selections, but as you say, Stephen with 3 great picks there. Yeah, I'm echoing a lot of what Stephen says, but I've gone with Nat for Warlord, 14-1. I'm obviously missing something. I'd make him near enough favourite for this race personally. I think if the rain does arrive, he's going to have everything in his favour. 4th in a red hot Arkle. His form stacks up all over the place, and I just think 2.5 miles now is what is needed. He was taken off his feet in the Holden Gold Cup for reasons we discussed. I got my value angle. Harper's Brook. I'm not totally bought on Montmorale at 11-8. And I think if the ground then goes against Thunder Rock, as I said, I think if the rains do arrive, this could turn this into a little bit of a lottery. Harper's Brook being a 12-1 poke is a strong traveller. I think he will travel into the race. We do know he handles soft ground, so hopefully he can run a big race at double-figure price for the Ben Pauling team, incidentally, who are having the best season of his training career. I think he's now in his 10th year with a training licence. Then my long shot, I'm with you. And get a bit of 10, 11-1 about Thomas Darby. I think he's a fair each way play. Placed in the Supreme. He's won at Cheltenham on another occasion. He's quirky. He's getting on, but he does stay. He does like Cheltenham, and he does handle soft ground. So he's ticking more boxes than most for a horse at a double-figure price, in my view. That pretty much concludes the action. Stephen, what about yourself? Are you racing anytime soon? You must be doing Sussex National. You must be 103 to be there.
Plumpton, yeah, Plumpton looks favourite. Is that on Monday? I think it's that Monday the 2nd. Plumpton. It's a really good, really good meeting. But I have got one tip that I give every year for this meeting: do not park in the middle of the course at Plumpton. Twice in the last 10 years, absolutely stuck. And you get pulled out by a tractor, but the car's basically ruined. You know, it's basically do about 700 quid getting in and out of the car park. So try and find a bit of concrete on the outside and walk in across the railway line, across the bridge into the track. Do not try and drive in. On a serious note, it's a belting card, and Plumpton's a really good track to go and visit. So I should hopefully be there with a bit of luck.
Indeed, yeah, always a good card. That was a great race. Two Amigos was a recent winner of that Sussex National, of course. Just won the Welsh National. So yeah, maybe we'll see a future star of that race in there. But yeah, well, enjoy Plumpton, Stephen. I presume Cheltenham from the attic or the sofa.
Yeah, from the attic. It's really good. There's lots of racing, isn't there, on New Year's Day? Yeah, hopefully the head. It'll be a day, Ed, as usual, sponsored by Nurofen, I suspect, New Year's Day.
As a headache tablets are available. But yeah, I do agree with the sentiment. Yeah, I'm off to Cheltenham, potentially with the children, depending on the weather. But either way, I hope those field sizes stack up, however you want to say it, because it does look a terrific card if we can get all those runners to post. Stephen, my thanks as ever. Thanks for you for watching at home. And of course, don't forget to check out irishracing.com for all the latest news, views, and features. And of course, don't forget to check out all Stephen's best bets on bettingexpert.com. If you do like to have a bet, please do gamble responsibly. Happy New Year. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching all year. Enjoy your racing. We'll see you again next week. We're back with 2 shows. We'll be back with the usual jump to it on the Friday. But in midweek, we'll be doing a special festive period review show with Stephen, Emma Nagel, and myself. We'll be looking at the key points, shall we say, from the Christmas period, and no doubt some strong opinions on them as well. So many thanks for watching. Happy New Year, and we'll see you again soon.